Hello and welcome to another episode of My Opinion Means Nothing. This week on the show I am joined by my very, very good friend, Ben.
Hi.
How you doing, man?
I'm good, man.
How you been, just for podcast purposes? How you been, man?
For podcast purposes,
yeah.
I'm really good. Yeah. It's like everything's going really well.
Oh, that's good to hear, man. For those that don't know, right, I met Ben at Thorpe Park. It was not long after I graduated. It was my first summer job properly, and me and Ben had the best job in the world. We got to scare people and got paid for it.
Yeah. Got to hide behind dark corners and jump out at people for money.
What you don't know, people at home, is the government pay people. No, I'm kidding. It was in a scare maze. Thorpe Park, they do Fright Nights. I was in a scare maze called Asylum. And
I was in the one that was based off the film. I think it was My Bloody Valentine. Oh no, it was the one. I can't exactly.
Cabin in the Woods.
There was another one in Cabin in the Woods.
Okay.
Mine one was about a miner, and it was this miner was out on a rampage, killing people in a mining town. I can't remember exactly what it was, but the whole maze was based about it going into a mine, and we'd have boiler suits on and gas masks and pickaxes.
Yeah, that was scary.
Yeah.
I remember that time when I went through your tunnel, and because I knew everyone there, they gave me a different treatment that they gave to the guests. It was.
So we couldn't touch the guests,
no,
but
we could. So, for the first topic on the show is what's happening in the world. I like to talk about the news because I find it really, really interesting and absolutely hilarious sometimes. Some of the what they call the headlines that they give are just bananas.
Absolutely.
And it's just sometimes I believe I thought that I never used to be interested in the news, when I was younger. But as I've got older, it just seems the news is so wild that it's how could this be happening? When you read a title, when I read a title and I'm like, this happened? Mm-hmm. And I click on it, I was like, whoa. So let's go for.
I'll say a point about that because what's coming to my mind is that I've been hearing a lot of people say this is the death throes of the news because the news as we know it tabloid news and newspapers, it's a dying media. So, and what's coming up is podcasts and YouTube videos and blogs and so all of that this new form of media, and people heading this, they don't the old tabloid news and TV news is doing whatever it can to kind of grab your attention, and it's becoming a spectacle.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that. A lot of the last guest that I had on the show, Dean, he was saying that he doesn't read any news. He gets all of his news from Twitter and social media. And I mean, not that that's bad or anything like that, but for me, it's just it's crazy that people would rather get their news from social media than from the tabloid or the broadsheet that we would usually go to them to find out the news, or we'd go to BBC News to find out what's going on in the world, but people would rather just go on Twitter and just be well, what's trending?
Yeah. But it's you're using a platform that you're already familiar with to get new information, and it's kind of what I always find, if you're going to get the news, you're best off getting 5 different versions of the same story and making your own opinion on that, using your own sort of kind of
I mean, I guess it has broadened it out, so there's more out there, and more can things like Twitter, people can post absolutely anything. And if enough people see it, doesn't matter how fast you take it down. That's been seen now.
Exactly.
So
it's kind of what there's no filter for it either. So anyone can say anything, and if enough people believe it, it becomes news.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of there's no filter. It's like a bullshit filter.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
It's nothing to tell what's real news and what's fake news. We just have to take it all in one, and we're just like, well, I guess this kind of sounds believable. I guess I will go with this, but then they're saying that, so how?
You tend to I think you tend to gravitate to the story that already kind of like fits with your already held beliefs.
Yeah.
So say like, for example, if you were say like, for example, Brexit, if you already thought we should leave, if you're already in that kind of group or of that kind of
bubble,
thinking in that bubble, when there's a story that comes out, there's different sides to each of that story, you're more likely to sort of maybe go with the side that supports your already held belief. So like you're going with what you already kind of hold to be true, rather than kind of questioning everything.
It's a lot of kind of group thought, as opposed to I have an idea and I'm going to go with my idea. I generally believe what they're saying. I guess we should group together, and we should. I guess people find safety in numbers, obviously. So I understand it, but I guess it's funny how we have all these platforms that are meant to give us freedom of speech, but it's so people are so free with their speech that. What's free speech anymore?
I don't know. I'd say that's to think that we have free speech, full free speech in this country. Yeah. I don't think that's quite true.
No.
I think that we have kind of in some sense we have free speech. Like everyone has opportunities to say what they say, but once there is an opinion or a thought or maybe even a joke said, that like alarm bells go off and say, no, you can't say that, and the freedom to offend or the freedom to bring things up, like let's just say, for example,
the thing that happened with Boris Johnson.
Well, and the thing that come to my mind was like Tommy Robinson. Now, like, he's a bit of an idiot, and I don't hold his opinions to be true, but he has a right to say them. What's happened in it? That's why there's so much hoo-ha. Like, there's actually been an illegal process by the courts to put him into prison.
Oh,
so this is kind of the story that I heard and I've listened to. It's basically the courts did an unjustful ruling and rushed it through the courts in order so that he could just go to prison, so he can be prosecuted. Now, like, I don't really agree or sort of kind of like agree with many of the things that he says, but the fact that he can say them, I will support that. Yeah, because like I want to see my bigotry out on the table. Yeah, I don't want it to kind of like be behind closed doors,
and I don't know what you're thinking.
Yeah, like, you know, the thing. Do you remember like that Question Time with the BNP came on the Question Time? Yeah, like the BNP were an authentic organisation. They would, but as soon as you gave them a platform to say their views, they just got decimated. Yeah, and so like let's give bigots the choice, the opportunity to say stuff, so then they can be proven wrong.
Exactly, because it's who else? I think what happened? Someone said something. Was it Richard Branson? He might have said something on Twitter about I have the internet. Richard Branson. Twitter. Well, usually that should be enough.
Well, see, he's got enough money to say what he wants in some way. There'll be some backlash, but he does enough money. Like he's got enough money, and I think he does enough like charity stuff that he can kind of get forgiven for what he does.
Well, I can't remember what he said, but Maybe it wasn't him. Sorry, Richard Branson, for bringing up your name.
You got a lawsuit on her.
My opinion means nothing. So, the first piece of news I wanted to bring up was like, where's it? So I found this on the Metro, and it was about Superdry co-founder donates £1 million to have the new Brexit referendum.
That's a lot of money. Or maybe it's not for like the co-owner of Superdry.
I mean, not really. I mean, it's
just
like chump change for him.
It's like there are billionaires out there. Do you know what I mean? Like these owners of companies, like they're billionaires. What's a million? A million's millions.
Yeah. So apparently, the co-founder of the global clothing brand is donating £1 million to the group that is campaigning for the second Brexit referendum. Julian Dunkington, who set up Superdry in 1985, is supporting the people's vote, which is trying to get the government to agree to a new referendum on the final terms of the UK leaving the EU. Basically saying he's putting some money behind the people's voting campaign, because he knows that they genuinely have a chance to turn things around. Mr. Dunkington, who started his company on the market stall in Cheltenham, said he was paying for one of the most detailed public polling exercises ever undertaken by a campaign. He felt this would give Remainders confidence when asking for a new vote. He added, "I've got a good instinct for when a mood is going to change, and we're in one of those moments right now." Dunkett suggests that if Brexit had happened 20 years earlier, he may have not been able to make his company a global success. No. It's kind of funny that he mentions that, because I found another thing to do with Brexit that I didn't actually kind of think about until I read the article. I read this article about how if Brexit happens and all the kind of laws and whatever goes into play, like with the agreement, it will not only just affect like trading, it will affect all kinds of trading. Like this includes like medicines and stuff like that. Yeah. So there's this drug firm called AstraZeneca, and they're making cancer medication. And they're an Anglo-Swedish firm, and they have a headquarters in Cambridge and manufactures. They're treating cancer, heart, and lung problems. And basically, they were saying that if there's a no-deal Brexit, could mean that patients in the EU will not be able to receive medicines from the UK. So,
it's well.
So that they think that at this moment in time they're currently doing a.
How would they not be able to receive medication if there's a no deal?
Because they wouldn't be able to move across. Because there would be stricter laws to because the reason why we can move freely to the EU is because we're in the European Union. Yeah. But now once we leave, I saw a report the other day that we'll have to pay £6 for our visa just to go to the EU. It's hard to understand it in forms, because they kind of say articles will say this, they won't be able to trade. Yeah. It's like, well, okay, so the EU kind of does trade with all other nations, so it will look different. It's sort of but nobody knows what it is. Yeah. And so there's the no deal is kind of I feel like every time I've kind of heard about this no deal, it's like nothing's going to happen. Yeah. It's like, well, that's probably not true, because there will be an agreement. It will just kind of it will look different, or it will cost more money, or it will, but it's I don't know
I don't even know what we want, like, and what people want, because there's a multitude of different sort of kind of